On June 5, 1967, the precarious peace in the Middle East was shattered. The hostilities that simmered between Israel and her Arab neighbors had been kept in check by United Nations observers for 10 years. When those troops were withdrawn at the insistence of Egyptian President Nasser, tensions exploded into warfare. Fearing attack from the Arab countries at her borders, Israel launched a preemptive strike on Syria, Egypt, and Jordan. Led by General Moshe Dayan, Israeli forces attacked Arabs in the Sinai Desert, the Gaza Strip, Jordan, Syria, and in Jerusalem itself. Israeli troops advanced toward the Suez Canal, overrunning the larger Egyptian army. Further north in Jordan, Israeli paratroopers captured the center of Jerusalem after fierce hand-to-hand fighting with Jordanian troops. And in Syria, Israeli forces advanced to the Golan Heights. Because the Arabs looked to the Soviet Union for support, most of the Western world stood behind Israel. The United Nations passed a ceasefire resolution, and President Johnson called for peace.
For the people of the Middle East, the path to hope does not lie in threats to end the life of any nation. Such threats have become a burden to the peace, not only of that region, but a burden to the peace of the entire world.
Despite the UN resolution, Israel continued the battle. In the first 3 days, there were at least 100,000 casualties. Although both sides started with similar air forces, the Israelis wiped out the Egyptian Air Force in the opening stages of the campaign, with dawn attacks on airfields. Israel's subsequent command of the air facilitated its rapid success in the ground campaign. 4 days after the start of the offensive, after a desperate counterattack had left the remnants of the Egyptian army trapped behind Israeli lines, Egypt admitted defeat and accepted the United Nations ceasefire resolution. President Nasser resigned. After only 6 days, Israel had gained all of its objectives and announced that it was accepting the United Nations ceasefire resolution. As the last Arab general surrendered, Israel held territory many times its own size. When the war was over, Israeli forces occupied the whole Sinai Peninsula. The Arabs had lost the Old City of Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights.
General Dayan, Israeli defense minister, is just about the most renowned soldier in the world just now. He planned and mounted at precisely the right moment what is destined to be regarded as a classic military campaign.
Although the six-day war was over quickly, it was a milestone in the complex Arab-Israeli history. Israel's surprising win notified the Arab world that Israel and its military were a force to be reckoned with in the Middle East. The simmering tensions erupted into another full-scale war in 1973. 6 years later, the political stalemate was broken when the leaders of Egypt and Israel signed an historic treaty. The process was furthered in 1993 when Israel came to terms with the Palestinians.
We who have fought against you, the Palestinians, we say to you today, in a loud and a clear voice, enough of blood and tears. Enough!
The leaders of both people called for an end to the violence, and peace began to come to a troubled land.